All right, in this video, we're going to talk about workflow. And workflow in Pantheon is pretty important. We have a dev, a test, and a live server environment. They are three completely separate websites and environments, but they do talk to each other. In a real world scenario, when you're building your site, you're probably going to build it completely in dev and then push it to test it there, and then push it to live. When you're ready to go live with your site, you have it on your live server, and that's where people see it. All of the premium services that Pantheon provide, like caching and things, they're all set up properly on the live server. And so you shouldn't do things like load test the dev server because it just won't give you accurate results. When you're setting up your site, commits that are pushed to Pantheon are always in development, and we're going to do that in just a moment. Then we manually pull the code to testing and then to live once it's ready to go. Content can be cloned between any of the environments, but as we'll see, cloning content to live is going to give us a bit of a challenge. All right, let's set up our dev environment. In this video, we're going to treat it like it's a brand new site that we're setting up for the first time. So I'm going to click on dev, and I'm going to visit my dev environment. I'm logged in, and I'm going to click add new content. You'll notice that, again, it's dev.mypantheon. And I'm going to create a simple article, just a welcome article. Welcome to my Pantheon training site. And we'll tag it with welcome and Pantheon. And in the body, glad you're here. Hope you learn lots. Of course, you can do anything you want here. I'm just going to grab an old Devel article. And I'm going to click Save. Go ahead and put some kind of article in on your dev environment if you're following along. So when I click Home, there's the Welcome to my Pantheon training site article. Now, this article doesn't exist in live or test, just in the dev environment. All right, so on my dev environment then, I have no code to commit here, but I've done a content change that I can now pull to test. If I click on Workflow, I can clone from the dev environment both the database and the files, and both are important in this case because the database is where the content is stored, and that image is stored in my files directory. I'm not running any updates like adding new themes or anything, so I don't really need to clear my caches, although that's usually a pretty good thing to do. This shouldn't take long. And now when I click Home on my test environment, I'm logged out, of course, because the sessions don't get brought over between environments. But my article is there from my dev environment. All right, let's move it to live. It's the same process. I'm going to click on Workflow, and I'm going to clone from the test environment both the database and the files. And I'm just for fun clear caches this time just to show you the difference, but whoops, here's this message. Unexpected bad things will happen if you don't read this. All this is telling me is, hey, wait a minute, you're trying to overwrite the content on your live environment. Do you really want to do that? Well, while we're developing a site before it goes live, this is fine. So just type the word clone and say, I understand the consequences. Again, this won't take long. It's a pretty small site. And now when I hit refresh, I'm logged out again, of course, but my article is there and I'm ready to go. So we can bring content and images and files over quite easily. What about if I want to actually make a change to the environment, like a new theme? Now we're talking a little bit more because it's not just database and content anymore. It's actually files and modules that need to be brought across. These are code changes, and Pantheon treats them a little differently. So let's go ahead and install a theme. I'm going to go grab the Drupal theme called Danland, which hasn't been updated since January of 2011, but it doesn't really need to be. It's just a demo theme. And I'm going to install that on my dev site, clicking on Appearance and Install New Themes, paste the URL and install. And I'm going to enable that newly added theme and set it as the default. And so now my dev environment has a brand new theme, which is code changes. If I come back over to my Pantheon dashboard and I click back on dev, you will see that there are 59 file changes ready to be committed to the dev environment. Just because I install something on my dev site doesn't mean it's actually committed to the code. So we have to actually commit this before we can clone it and push it to test and then to live. So let's go ahead and do that. This is my Danland theme commit. Again, this is just something to remind you of what it is later on. All right, and we're done. Danland theme commit is done. And now when I click on test and click on code, you'll notice that one commit is ready to pull from the development environment. Now, I don't need to actually clone my site. I need to pull from the development environment. So taking a look at this, I'm able to run the update.php, clear the caches, and pull files in the database from the live environment. This is for when our site's already gone live and we need to pull the content and files down before we actually finish testing. I'm just going to click pull code from development at this point. And the Danland theme is now committed to my test environment. If I come over to test and I hit refresh, well, nothing's changed. However, if I go to appearance, I'll see that the Danland theme has been installed. It's just not turned on because that's a configuration issue, not a code issue. So I'm going to enable and set that as default. And now test is the same as dev, and we could repeat that process for live. And so once again, the workflow. Commits are pushed to Pantheon in dev. Then we manually pull the code from dev to test and to live from test when we're creating a new site. In the next video, we'll talk a little bit more about what it's like to actually do this when your site is already live and you've got new content that you can't lose.